The daiquiri cocktail is made, like I said, with rum, sugar, and lime juice. Let's start off with 2 ounces of rum. And now let's get a ½ ounce of lime juice. Now one thing you'll notice here on my little set, I've got 2 limes sitting here, a small lime and a large lime. This, to my mind, illustrates why you never want to see juice of 1 lime or juice of half a lime in a recipe, because I fully expect that the juice is going to be different out of these 2 products. So that's why I'm going to measure my juice carefully. ½ ounce lime juice. Now for the sugar. The common recipe calls for adding granulated sugar to this drink. There's a problem with that, however. Sugar doesn't dissolve in cold liquids, which this is definitely not warm, and if I put ice in it, it's going to get cold. And it really doesn't dissolve in alcohol that well. So using granulated sugar, you end up with some sugar crystals in the drink, which I really don't think is a good thing to have. Instead, I prefer using simple syrup in this case. Simple syrup is just simply sugar that you've dissolved in water. The way I do it is I take a cup of water, bring that to a simmer, add a cup of sugar to that, stir it until it's just dissolved, then allow it to cool, then place it in a bottle. If I want this bottle to be shelf stable, meaning I want to keep it out on the shelf while I'm doing stuff, not have put it in the refrigerator all the time, to that I'll add a little bit of vodka just to take and prevent any mold from growing on it. Because if this was just pure sugar and water, it would eventually mold on the shelf, which is not a very appetizing sort of thing to do. But adding vodka to it or a high grain alcohol, that will prevent any mold from coming in. So now we want to take and add 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. And the reason my simple syrup is slightly on the brown side is because I chose to use Demerara sugar, which is a raw style sugar. It's still got some color and I think a little bit of extra flavor to it. And so the simple syrup just makes this drink easier to make. Now, at some point in time, somebody looked at this process of making essentially what we call a sour. This is the same process as making a whiskey sour, except for whiskey sour, I'd be using whiskey rather than rum and lemon juice instead of lime. So they look at this, and there's a lot of drinks out there that use citrus juice for the sourness of it and sugar or simple syrup for the sweetening power of it. And they saw that quite often it was pretty close to the same ratio of sweet to sour in all these sorts of drinks. And they said, hey, let's take a short step. Let's pre-mix our simple syrup and lemon juice. So you could take your simple syrup and take half an amount of simple syrup and half of an amount of lime juice, put them together, you've now got a lime sour mix. Or use lemon juice, you got a lemon sour mix. Or combine the lemon and the lime, and that way you could consider you could use this for either a lime drink or a lemon drink because it kind of has both the same flavors in it. Well, we take that even to the further extent, and now we have companies making sour mix that people add into drinks. It just makes it even that much quicker and easier. Bars don't have to make their own sour mix. They can just buy it off the shelf. And these companies also would put chemical additives and things like that to make sure it stayed shelf-stable. And since lemon and lime juice fresh is kind of expensive, they use citric acid instead. And so eventually we end up with sour mix that has all chemical components to it. It tastes downright horrid, but it's cheap. And that's why you'll take and have people making margaritas and daiquiris and stuff like that in a glass like this. Like, this is how much this drink is going to have in it. Put some ice into it, you might get it up this far, but you can buy a margarita and a daiquiri in a glass this high. That's because they're sticking cheap sour mix in it. Any drink you want to make with quality, you want to make sure you use fresh ingredients. Don't use any sour mix, even homemade sour mix. I don't recommend, because in a homemade sour mix, you're still going to take and try to use that one ratio ingredient for all of your drinks. And as we'll see throughout these episodes, some drinks will have a slightly different ratio of lemon to sugar. Some will have a slightly different ratio of lime to sugar. And so you really can't have one product that is going to blanket across all these drinks and really bring out the distinctive characteristics of it. So make sure you use fresh lemon juice or fresh lime juice, in simple syrup, or when appropriate, sugar in making this drink. Now let's add our ice. Now for a garnish, I'm just going to do something kind of simple here and just cut a very thin slice of lime wheel and just float it on the top. And there we have our daiquiri.